All right, welcome everybody to Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation's Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions. Back with us, we got two biggies today. Tyler Wertman, Brandon Robertson. What's up, guys? How you doing?
What's going on? What's going on, everybody? Tyler, what's up, man?
How you doing, Brandon? Hey, Steve, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for being with us today, guys. Your topic today is called Playing Duo Performances. We're recording these sessions for the purposes of Clearwater Jazz Holiday education and outreach as we do. Thank you for following along. If you have been enjoying these sessions, we appreciate your feedback. Send it to info@clearwaterjazz.com. Check out our online resources. After these sessions, these get archived on our website at clearwaterjazz.com in the studio. The video sessions are brought to you by Blue Water Wealth Management at Steward Partners, and the audio portion is archived in our Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions podcast, which is available wherever you stream your podcast, or search for it at clearwaterjazz.com's education and outreach section. We also like to give a shout out to our friends at the Al Downing Tampa Bay Jazz Association, who have helped to support and expand the reach of these programs. But let's get right into it today. Let me tell you about Brandon and Tyler and then turn it over to them. Both are regular participants in Clearwater Jazz Holiday Education and Outreach. If you go into our studio or the podcast, you are going to see a variety of incredible sessions that they have done earlier in the year. Brandon, I think, is up to 6 or 7 of them, maybe even more now. He's done some really cool sessions on where do I begin as a professional musician, on how to attack a performance, raising the bar, simple techniques to deal with performance, how to develop melodic bass lines, tempos and styles, how to develop endurance, thinking like a horn player from a bass perspective, and how to capture a big sound. Tyler also has a lot of great sessions under his belt. Tyler's a trombone player, and he has a whole basic trombone fundamental series dealing with long tones and lip slurs and tonguing and articulation. A lot of other great stuff, scale mode applications, approaching a transcription, developing a warm-up regimen, an approach to improvisation on trombone, and many, many more. It's just so great to see this resource getting built. Brandon is an Emmy-nominated music director, professional upright electric bassist, composer, and music educator originally from Tampa, Florida. He completed his Bachelor of Arts in Music from Florida State University and a Master of Music in Jazz Studies. Currently, Brandon is the Director of Jazz Studies and Director of the FGCU basketball band at Florida Gulf Coast University in Fort Myers, Florida. In 2018, he was nominated for an Emmy Award for Best Documentary for Educational Collegiate Programs featuring the FGCU Jazz Ensemble. He's a prominent band leader. He's taken his band on multiple national tours, headlining at some of the nation's top festivals, and he has played with some greats, including the world-famous Count Basie Orchestra, led by director Scotty Barnhart, vocalist Carmen Bradford, Jason Marsalis, Marcus Roberts, Marty Morell, Wycliffe Gordon. Man, the list goes on. Brandon has also been featured as a performer and band leader at various national jazz festivals. Recently, he released his first debut album. It's called Based on a True Story, BASS''D. That was in the fall of 2019, reached all the way to number 16 on iTunes Top 200. Check that out. Tyler is a jazz trombonist and graduate and alumni of FSU and USF with a study focus on jazz performance. He is a composer, performer, producer focused on jazz and classical styles. He performs with many groups and ensembles throughout the area. Currently an adjunct instructor of music at Florida Gulf Coast University in Fort Myers as well. And I believe he's also doing some adjunct work with the University of Tampa, becoming quite the catch as an educator. He's just the man. Brandon, Tyler, welcome back to the both of you to Clearwater Jazz Holidays, Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions. The stage is all yours.
I don't even know where to start, man. I think I'm more excited that Tyler is my coworker now.
Brandon.
Yeah, man. Well, everybody, thank you, Steve, for that wonderful introductory into the Al Downing Foundation Association, the Tampa Bay Jazz Association, all of you all for your wonderful, wonderful contribution to music, to our youth. As on behalf of myself and Tyler, we thank you guys very much for all that you do for the Tampa Bay area and the Central Florida area, and now expanding down to the Southwest Florida area. So that's great. We're making levels here. So today, in the past, I've done a lot of these sessions kind of solo, and I've only spoken about rhythm section. I've done some archives when it comes to professional development and what does it take to reach up to that professional level of a musicianship. But there was a topic that most recently, and I'm actually dealing with this currently in one of my ensembles at the university, and we've been talking about duo performances. And I had a student who asked me if they could do a duo performance. And so when I asked this student, what do you know about performing as a duo? They didn't have much to offer me. So that right there gave me the idea to talk about this topic in case there were horn players and or rhythm section players who would like to venture off and do more smaller configurations. And I'm going to tell you something, when it comes to doing duos, that is a whole different timbre, because the relationship between you and the other person have to be in sync the entire time. One person cannot drop the ball on the other because there's no other supporting than each other. Okay. So I asked one of the most killing trombonists in Central Florida, hands down. That's my dude, Mr. Tyler. And I'm not just saying that because he's my friend and I know him. He is an incredible trombonist. And as Steve had mentioned about the earlier archives that he's talked about, the chord relationships, how to develop a good regimen, warm-up regimen, all of that, that's important because this actually entails when you're dealing with a duo situation. So I'm going to ask Tyler a question first to kind of start it off. Tyler, what has been your experiences with participating in duo performances, and what's your mindset when you're going into a situation like that?
Well, like you said, man, definitely a different color. Okay. You need to be approaching it differently than any other performance you might have had. Okay. It's closer to a solo performance than it is playing with an ensemble. Now, I say that because when we're doing a duo performance, we need to be as tasteful as possible. We do not need to be playing excess harmonic, jumbled information. Things need to be very clear, very concise, and things need to be conversating in terms of what you're playing with your other musician there. They're not a robot, okay? They're going to be responsive to what you play. And by being as clear and definitive with our playing, in terms to communicate where we are, is only going to help us out in our performance.
Right. And I like that you used the word tasteful, because in my experiences doing duo performances, what I've come across is there are two types of situations that can go down. And as me being a rhythm section player, I'm going to speak now to the rhythm section players here. So I'm speaking to bass players, drummers, pianists, guitarists, and vibraphonists, because their vibes are an auxiliary percussion instrument that is part of the rhythm section. So I don't exclude them either. Okay. Now, as a rhythm section, as a bass player, what I think about is harmonically, I am outlining the chord changes if it's no piano player there. So I have to do what Tyler had mentioned. I have to play very clear bass lines. So that means sometimes I can't add in tritone substitutions, or I can't add in these extensions of the chord that goes beyond the harmony to where the soloist can't necessarily hear the root motion. Okay. So when it comes to playing a duo from a bass standpoint, I like to not say that I like to stick to the more generic bass lines, but I like to stick very relatively closely to the key center of what we're playing in. And so that way, whoever I am accompanying or whoever I'm sharing that space with, I'm not getting in their way, nor am I not devaluing the performance itself by doing extra things that aren't necessary. Okay. And what Tyler mentioned was very, very true. It has to be very clear. It has to be concise. And it also has to be arranged in a way where the melody and how you play the melody comes across as the tune, as you would normally hear in a regular ensemble setting. So Tyler, what would be that standpoint from a horns perspective?
So, I mean, you talked about it, man, how to accompany a melody. Okay. Now for you're playing, you're locking down these changes while the horn player or piano player or whoever, okay, might be playing this melody. Now, you said something very unique. You need to be very clear because we don't have a drummer. Okay, we might not have a rhythmic harmonic instrument like a piano to play all of those chords. Mm-hmm. So you, and myself or whoever is there are responsible for the time. So we can't be playing all these triplet things and whatever if it's not, in place. Mm-hmm. And that's what you're talking about, keeping things as tasteful as possible, doing things for a reason, with reason. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, in terms of accompanying the melody, okay, we need to listen to what voice they're playing the melody in. Okay. I know we talked about this a little earlier, range. Okay. Are you playing up on your horn, and maybe are you walking the bass line, in the higher register? Well, maybe it might be time to walk in the lower register if the horn's in the upper part of the horn, vice versa. If they're playing very low, maybe it would be cool to play up top, walk some lines. And of course, I'm talking about bass right now, opposed to the melody instrument, but just giving that, effect of I hear where the melody's going, so I'm going to go somewhere different intentionally. And if you want to go the same way, that's cool, but make sure it's influenced again with reason, and it's not just something, we're both playing up here, we're both playing down here. You need to be aware, especially in the duo performances, like you're saying.
And I'm going to give an example because he said something that made me think about like the range. And so bass and trombone are pretty much in the same range in the category, right, in terms of what we're reading. So like the same register that I would play on an upright is the same register that the trombone is reading. The only difference is the different positions and the timberness that the trombones can emulate. So for instance, like I'm going to take trombone because Tyler plays trombone. When you're playing on a tenor trombone, right, with a smaller bore, now you could play higher notes because the size of your bore isn't going to compress that note as quickly as it would if you had like a symphony bore, like which is a lot larger. Mm-hmm. And so on bass, I was thinking of the song Laura. Right now, I'm taking that range of that tune, that's a very low, it's on the low spectrum in terms of its range, that particular song. So I'm hearing J.J. Johnson play this song. And if I were to accompany him, I would think about where he played it. So he actually would probably, and Tyler, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you could probably play it an octave higher than where the bass would be playing the bottom note. Which still is within that same range. But right, then where the bridge, where it shifts to a different key center, now the upright bass can start doing this. Mm-hmm. It can start moving up. And what Tyler said, which is very true, great duo performances, you can hear the contrast between each instrument. So every instrument has a contrasting layer. So if you understand that, okay, if we're using trombone, or let's go over saxophone, because like a saxophonist can play 6 or 7 different runs in one lick, right? They can just do all that up and down, right? And so let's say if it was sax and piano, so now you have 2 harmonic instruments with less rhythmic component. So how would the saxophone not get in the way of the pianist, which the piano can embellish the same range as that saxophone because they have 88 choices to choose from, right? So he mentioned about the range. It's really important that when you're talking about the range is that you're listening for the contour of the melody, and wherever that melody is placed and wherever that melody range is, whoever is accompanying that melody in that time has to stay below that, and no, go ahead.
No, I want to say something to that. So I want to say it in another way that maybe students might be able to think and grasp this concept better. So it's like having a conversation, guys, literally the way we're talking, okay? Me and him, we're having a duo Skype session, okay? You're not going to hear me start screaming and doing all this stuff randomly. Things need to be in a certain order, right? Same thing in our solos, guys. It's not like you're playing something nice in one way, and then all of a sudden you just start doing whatever you want, okay? It literally is a conversation with the notes that we're playing.
And then let me ask you this, Tyler. What do you think about for arranging when you're talking about arrangement for a duo? So like okay, let's do this. Brass instruments have a unique, different timbre in their sound versus a woodwind instrument. And I was describing this to a few of my combo students, and I was explaining to them the saxophone can emulate a kind of sound, whereas a brass instrument has a very narrow, like in terms of how the sound punches out of their instrument, right? And so when I'm asking you is when you're thinking about arranging for a duo, and if you use a brass instrument, because you play a brass instrument, what is something to consider when you're talking about melody? And I'm going to pick a random rhythm section instrument. Let's use drums. So if you did not have a bass or piano player, but you had a drummer, how would that arrangement look? And how would you want that rhythm section player, or what would you want them to think about in terms of when you're arranging?
Sure. So horn and drums, okay? So we do not have a comping instrument here. So we are solely responsible for the harmonic form of the tune, okay? The changes, everything here. Now, what I would do, I'd talk to my drummer, figure out what styles he or she might be comfortable playing in. Okay, it's really cool, especially when you're doing duo performances, to open up your arrangement book, so to speak. Maybe try a tune in a different tempo. Maybe try a tune in a different style. Okay, it's very easy to pull these concepts off here rather than in a small group or even big band setting. Okay, those things take and require a lot more time to arrange. When in fact, when we're playing duo, I can tell the drummer to set up a samba in 3/4. Play Cherokee. Go do something different. Okay. And again, we need to figure out what styles the other musician is comfortable with. Okay, and we need to understand we are responsible for the chord changes then. Okay, so have some fun developing or arranging your duo tune. Okay, maybe try something more up than you used to, maybe more down. Maybe play something that is up as a ballad. Okay, or in terms with the drummer. Okay, try something in a different time. Okay, or solo section, double time. Just experiment with a certain. I like to say atmospheres, because when you match and combine styles, it brings a certain flavor to the room that, you can feel that, right? When guys are on and they sync up and they go into double time, you feel that. When they drop it into halftime and they swing hard, you feel that, right? It's about creating those moments in your arrangements.
And going off of that too, and using another analogy, I can't speak for all of you who are watching this, but if you're a sports fan like I am, I like football, right? And the two most important people when it comes to scoring a touchdown, when you're talking about a more elongated range on the football field, you're speaking about the quarterback and the wide receiver, right? And the communication between both of those players have to be on the same page. Why? Because the wide receiver is giving the play in the route. So the quarterback is throwing the ball to that person. They have to communicate that. They're looking at each other as the play is in session. The same thing is happening with a duo situation. Whoever is that lead melody is the quarterback. Then you become the wide receiver. So you're actually passing along information to that other individual, and they're relaying it back to you. And the audience, what the audience is hearing is what Tyler described is a conversation. So there's a piggyback that's happening off of that, right? But then here's another thing, Tyler, that I want to ask, and I wanted to see if get your 2 cents on. What about the opposite of that? What if it was, what would you think? How would you think from a rhythm section perspective if the rhythm section player was the lead melody and the horn then was accompanying that person? So let's reverse that.
Yeah. And even then, let's say it's piano guitar duo. Okay, so we have both instruments now that can comp and play all this harmonic information. Okay, again, then it's all about phrasing. Okay, what are you saying here? Playing melodic content, feeding off of your other musicians' melodic line. Okay, keeping that conversation relatively on topic, if you wanted to put it in grammatical terms. Okay, I talk about improvisation like writing a paper. Okay, we need to have that introduction, and you need to have that conclusion, right? And your body needs to all be just information that we've already discussed in the kind of, what I'm saying? Like we need to make it all uniform. We need to make it all one great solo. Okay. How do we do that? Okay. Again, phrasing. We need to know when, not only when we're playing melodies, but when we're soloing, when are we getting to our high point in our solo? Do we know when we're getting to our high point in our solo? Okay, because that's something to gauge off of and listen to, especially if you're comping or you're behind a player. When are they going to go all out? And I need to supply them with all the energy that I can. Because you don't want to do that in the wrong place, especially in a duo performance. You need to be reading that other player, even more so if you were in a big band or something like that. So my experiences with duos, man, I played a lot with Zach Bartholomew, actually, at Florida State, at Cypress, that little brunch spot right outside of Baton.
Yeah.
And so we did a couple of duo shows there. And I just remember, playing with Zach, playing very consistently, not trying to reinvent the wheel, right? Just kind of playing what feels good in that moment rather than having all this preemptive material that I want to come out and I want to blow the doors off because I'm playing with the mute and you can actually hear the trombone with the mute because I'm excited and I want to do all this crazy stuff. It needs to be very, it's a more mature grouping. Okay. So exactly like you're saying, develop those with a repertoire of maybe 2 artists, okay, on your dominant instruments, and then that gives your audience insight, okay, and I love that. That's great.
And lastly, one thing that I actually thought about this recently. I didn't realize that this actually happens on a bandstand. When you're doing duo, I did and I'm going to actually talk about this in my next, I think my last session that I have coming up for this month, which is I'll be talking about how to accompany a vocalist. And I'm going to give an example very briefly that's going to segue into that topic, but just very briefly because I don't want to give the whole story. But I was playing with a singer, and she's a very notable singer, Lila Bialy. She won the Juno Award last year, outbeat Diane Krall, Canada's finest. Just took her out, right? And so Lila had asked me to do this show with her, and she said, I want to do a 2-hour show with you, just bass and voice. Now, this was the first time I had ever done this in my life. Now, I'm sitting here thinking, 2 hours? let alone I got to play for 60 minutes on bass.
Your fingers, man.
The fingers, and conceptually, like how do I do that, right? And we're playing her music. We were playing all her original music. We weren't playing standards. So I'm sitting here like, these are some weird arrangements, not like weird, like they're out there, but just like for a bass player to just play by himself with no drums and piano. And you know what her response was? This is why I want to leave it like this. Her response was, I don't want you to sound like my record. I want you to sound like you accompanying me on my charts. Now, even then, I still was kind of like, that ain't comforting.
That makes you feel good, though.
It makes me feel good. It makes me feel good, but it wasn't comforting in the sense of, well, what do I do? Because if I mess this up, you're not going to hire me again. And what she meant by that was, because she actually broke it down to me before we played. She said, what I mean by is, I don't want you to play what my bass player was doing on my record because there's a full band. We're not going to sound like that tonight because it's just the two of us. So I'm actually excited to do this show because I get to hear what my music sound like with just two people. I said, wow, that's a different perspective to think about. When you're doing a duo performance, you don't know what's going to happen because it's already uncertain with the configuration that you have set up. Like if it was trombone and drums or bass and trumpet or piano and sax, it's like there's these configurations that already people are like, how's this going to work? So when she made me think like that, it really like calmed me down. It actually like made me more like relaxed because I was like, okay, this is actually a cool thing because now I'm not only challenging myself, but I get to do something different. And as musicians, we like to do things different because if we get stuck in the same way, there's nothing that's going to help us musically grow. Excuse me. So like, I don't want to ever be in a duo situation where I'm going to feel staggered or I'm going to feel like stale with my ideas and things like that. So you have to, that interplay that Tyler was talking about earlier, that interplay is so important in them situations because you just don't know what's going to happen, and you're relying on each other because you only have each other in that spot. That's it. So Tyler, do you have any final thoughts or anything on?
No, man. No, like you said, it's a mature grouping, okay? And you really, really need to be open, listening. You need to be responsive with what the other person's playing, and you need to be able to interpret their playing as well. Don't go into a duo performance and not expect to not interpret any other musical material besides your own. That will be a very negative performance in all aspects, not only for you, but for the audience as well. Okay, no one really wants to listen to that. Okay, it's like you talking to a wall. Does someone want to listen to you do it? Maybe someone might subscribe. Okay,
somebody out there.
Yeah, exactly. But me, I don't. Okay, it's again, just be very mature in the duo performances and have fun. Like I was saying, this is the time to take chances. Okay, do things maybe differently that you're not used to. Okay, and I believe musicians should be doing this at least every day. Okay, we don't need to be going through the motions. We don't need to be going through the cycles. When I take a solo, it doesn't need to be, I have these 5 things I like to do, and I'm only going to play these 5 things. Okay, no, we need to be pushing ourselves always, even to that uncomfortable, zone that we might not know what's going to happen. That, for me, I love that zone. Okay, it's good. It's good to know where it is because you can touch it and come back, baby. Mm-hmm. But I believe every musician, man, especially in a duo performance, should have that concise material, but open yourself up, okay? Because this is the time to really figure out what your music sounds like. Okay, what does your playing sound like here? Mm-hmm. That, like your vocalist was saying.
Yep. And also just being very assertive with whatever you do. Like don't go into any of these concerts, a duo situation, and not be assertive with what you're going to do. Like, you should have a very strong game plan as to how you're going to approach that show. Because, boy, when he hit it right on the nail. You come in there with a different interpretation, that's going to be a negative performance. And let me tell you, the worst thing that you can have is an audience that don't say nothing at the end. Like, and it's only happened to me twice. I'm proud to say it's never happened with my band particularly, but I've been in other groups where that has happened, where the band leader just didn't have it together. And at the end of that concert, nothing. It wasn't nothing. It was just they just staring at us like, y'all done? Like, oh, and then, I guess so. And then, yeah, you're done. Like, so yeah, you don't want that situation. All right. So yeah, I think we wrapped up. I think we covered it all today. This was a great topic.
Yeah,
great
man.
topic.
Yeah, it was really fun having you both with us today, and I know you're going to be back. We already have a couple up on the upcoming sessions with Brandon, and then I got to do some arm twisting with Tyler to get him back on the upcoming schedule, but I know he'll be back. You love us, Tyler, don't you?
I do. Yeah, I can't get enough, man.
So Brandon's got a couple on the schedule right now. Please check out these upcoming sessions at clearwaterjazz.com/education. It's under upcoming sessions under the virtual sessions section. And let's see, we got creating new music composition and charts with Brandon on Thursday, September 24th at 3 p.m. And then Brandon's doing another session on Tuesday, September 29th, how to accompany a vocalist. So we're really looking forward to those, but check these out. I mean, there's a lot of wonderful people participating, and we add more all the time. So on behalf of the Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation, all of our partners, Brandon and Tyler, thank you for being continuing to be a special part of these sessions. Thank you for everybody participating today, and we look forward to seeing you again on the next one. So stay safe out there, be well, keep playing, and we will see you soon. Take care, everybody.
See you guys.